Happy Saturday, and thank you for tuning in to Divas Den on IntellectualRadio.com. I am your host, the boss lady, and my co-host, the Diva.
Good morning.
We are hoping that you have a great Saturday at this present time. Today we have a great show for you, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this show is because we know of many of you, family, friends, that have diabetes. And today
Or
we
on the
have,
verge of
or
that.
on the verge or borderline, some of the stats, once I started researching and talking to our special guest, is very alarming. We have Dr. Tony Hampton, medical director of Advocate Medical Group and author Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes. He will be on the second part of our show. So we are glad to have him. And we are Facebook Live. Can you share your comments? Thank you guys for sharing earlier. Those of you who shared that you either have diabetes or someone in your family has it. But our goal is always to inform.
Educate.
And educate. Yes, definitely. So before we get started and bringing on our special guest, I want to talk about some of the current events. The madness that's going on in our world right now. It is madness. And the White House definitely is a focus. What happened in Charlottesville as well is a focus. CNN, you turn on CNN and it is nonstop. You turn on the news, it is nonstop talk about it. So we just want to touch on it a little bit. If you don't know, Steve Bannon is no longer with the White House. And I would say in the last, 60 days, it hasn't even been 90 days, the cabinet is, people are leaving one by one by one.
Either falling apart.
Yes, falling apart, either resigning or being asked to leave. And it is definitely scary. And sometimes I wonder really what the rest of the world thinks about the United States of America. And number 45.
45.
Our president, who is supposed to be our leader. And unfortunately, with the stats and the percentages and the polls, many do not agree that he is leading us in the right direction.
I think he thinks he's doing a reality show like The Apprentice. I really think that's the kind of demeanor I see of him, that he thinks that this is a reality show.
I tell you what, it's going to get real. It has already gotten real, and it's going to get worse. And so let me touch on Charlottesville. It's a sad day when we have white supremacists and KKK walking down the street with torches and weapons.
And guess what?
And protesting in a place where people don't want them.
And they have exposed themselves. They're not marching with sheets covering themselves up. They're letting us know who they are.
And many of them are walking alongside of us, working alongside of us. And it is a shame. And I wanted to bring it up because my son, who's 19 years old, and his friends, when our young people were starting to be alarmed and afraid, because many of them just returned back to school, to college, and they're going to school in areas where it is predominantly white communities and schools. So there is some concerns. And the young man that was attacked on that day, one of them anyway, his name is DeAndre Harris. He was walking along with friends on his way to the parking lot. And his friends lost track of who where he was, and he was being attacked and beaten by the white supremacists and the KKK, and he was beaten badly. And then the
jumped on
a 20-year-old, and then we had the gentleman, I'm not going to call him Mr. Fields, who ended up, I think I have the right name, ended up taking his vehicle
and plowing through the
crowd. And the young lady, Heather Heyer, died. And her mother, I'm telling you, in regards to her parents, my heart goes out to them. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that is so great is they're very humble. and they're going to try to make changes, and they're going to speak out on behalf of their daughter. And I'm thankful for her that she was willing to stand for the right thing and against racism. So, people, we need to come together as a nation. We also need to be aware and stay woke about what's going on around us. Do not lose sight as to what is happening. Everyone, be careful out here in these streets. Unfortunately, there is a lot of hate amongst us, and we are going to continue to pray and be watchful.
And that's one reason why we cannot be hateful toward each other.
Yes.
Because see, now we're fighting two fights. We're fighting against ourselves, and we're fighting against this other group.
Yes, definitely. So we are going to talk about what's going on world. We have a couple of things, our workshop on today, as well as just touching on the Pretty in Pink that is going to take place in October. And then we will have the Divas share some stats as well.
I'm going to share stats first.
Okay.
Despite the recent advances, diabetes continues to be a major health threat for at least 29 million Americans who have it and 86 million Americans with pre-diabetes. The biggest concern for individuals with this disease, complications, which can cause vision loss, heart disease, strokes, and other medical conditions. With the aging of the population, the risk factors are likely obesity. These problems are going to skyrocket, making medical innovation more critical than ever. And this comes from the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Disease. There are two types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, formerly called juvenile onset, accounts for 5 to 10 out of 100 people who have diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, the body's immune system destroys the cells that releases insulin, eventually eliminating insulin production from the body. Type 2, formerly called the adult onset, can develop at any age. It most commonly becomes apparent during adulthood. But type 2 diabetes in children is rising. Type 2 diabetes accounts for the vast majority of people who have diabetes, 90 to 95 out of 100 people. That's a lot.
Yes.
In type 2 diabetes, the body isn't able to use the insulin the right way. This is called insulin resistant. As type 2 diabetes get worse, the pancreas may make less and less insulin. Per the World Health Organization, 422 million people worldwide, not just, this is worldwide, have diabetes. This is a number that is likely to double in the next 20 years. Yes. In 2012, diabetes was the direct cause of 1.5 million deaths. More than 80% of diabetes deaths occur in low and middle income countries because they don't have the proper care, proper medication.
And diet.
Yes. Yeah. Type 2 accounts for 90% of all diabetes worldwide. Diabetes in children have increased worldwide because people are not properly feeding their children the right foods. Here's 10 facts about diabetes. About 1/3 of the people with diabetes do not know that they have diabetes. Type 2 diabetes often does not have any symptoms. Only about 5% of all people with diabetes have type 1 diabetes. If you are at risk, type 2 diabetes can be prevented with moderate weight loss. You got to lose 10 to 15 pounds and 30 minutes of moderate physical activity, such as brisk walking each day. A meal plan for a person with diabetes isn't very different than that which is recommended for people without diabetes. Diabetes is the leading cause of blindness in working age adults. People with diabetes are twice as likely to develop heart disease than someone without diabetes. Good control of diabetes significantly reduces the risk of developing complications and prevent complications from getting worse. Diabetes costs roughly $174 billion annually, including $160 billion in direct medical expenses. as you all know or may not be aware, my mother had diabetes. That was the major cause of her death. Um, she was on dialysis for forever. And the reason being, she was overweight. Um, didn't want to follow her diet regimen, which causes, that's what it was.
Hmm.
So this is going to be kind of touchy here today, but we're going to hear what the doctor has to say about this.
Yes, and this is, like I said, this is one of the reasons we wanted to do this show, because we need to educate ourselves, especially when you talk about those numbers. I mean, millions and millions that don't know,
That they have it.
90% that does not know. And, for Dr. Tony Hamilton to share that information and some of the stats and just our communication back and forth, I know that he has a lot to share with us about diet and diabetes. So I can't wait for us to talk to him shortly.
Okay, well, let me finish so
Okay.
I can get, so we can get Dr. Tony
Yes, definitely.
his book.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Fix your diet, fix your diabetes.
When doctors sit down here, I guess your diet is probably one of the major factors in controlling your diabetes. Okay. Well, we're going to get back to that. Today in Divas Inc. world, we will hold our monthly workshop. Today is on the truth about drugs. This is going to be one of our best workshops this year. Miss Catherine Dixon of New Life Living to Live Again will present known facts of what drugs are and what they can do to your body and your mind. I strongly recommend this workshop for school-age children, especially middle school, high school, and college-bound students. I also encourage parents to come out as well. All are welcome, and this workshop is free. Did I say that?
Yes.
It's free. All of our workshops are free.
Yes.
It's today at the Charles M. Hughes Community Center, 646 North Parkside, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Guess what?
What?
We got dates for the Divas next 2 events of the year. Actually, our last events of the year. These are the highlights of events that we do. I'm so excited and ready to let the festivals begin.
Yes.
So save the date. Saturday, October 21st, 2017 at 5 p.m., Divas Inc. will celebrate and honor all breast cancer survivors with our 6th annual Pretty in Pink affair. The celebration will be held at the Crystal Sky Banquet, 7941 West 47th Street, and that's in McCook, Illinois. Early bird tickets will go on sale soon. If you would like to sponsor this event, please visit our website, divas-inc.org. Go to the news page and click on the button for sponsorship information. If you have goodies or flyers that you want to put in our goodies bags, give me a call at 855-462-3482. Please visit our website and both our pages, Developing Intellectual Visions and Self, and Divas Den on Facebook to learn about ticket sales, and if you want to learn more about this event. Our last event of the year is Christmas at Deborah's Place. Deborah's Place is the Chicago largest provider of supporting housing for single women experiencing homelessness. Deborah's Place open doors for housing, healing, and hope. We have partnered with Deborah's Place for over 5 years and have provided the residents a home-cooked Christmas meal ever since. This year, we will celebrate with Deborah's Place Friday, December 22nd, 2017 at 5 p.m. Deborah's Place is located at 2822 West Jackson in Chicago. If you're interested in volunteering or donate, give us a call at 855-463482.
Well, I tell you, thank you for those announcements. Friends and Facebook friends, you know that I will be asking for donations for both of these events. So if you're interested, please don't hesitate to inbox me as well, so we can make sure that we pick up the donations from you, or tell you where you can send them to us. So we appreciate those year after year who participate in the events that we have to help sponsor our workshops and events and what we do in the community.
Last year at Deborah's Place, we had some guests that wanted to partner with us. They gave out blessing bags,
Yes.
and a DJ sponsored music. I mean, we had a really good time. So if you are an organization that would like to collaborate with us during this time of the year to help out the residents at Deborah's Place, again, visit our website, divas-inc.org, Facebook pages, Developing Intellectual Visions and Self, and Divas Den, or give us a call at 855-462-3482.
Thank you, the diva. I have one more announcement. One of our good friends, Mr. Craig Hodges, retired NBA player with the Chicago Bulls, as well as author of Longshot, and the organization that he works alongside with, BTUF, which stands for Ball Till You Fall, an organization in the South suburbs that work with young men in regards to AAU basketballs, trainings, things of that sort, is having their first annual three-point contest on September the 2nd. Doors open at 7 a.m. at Rich East High School, 300 Sauk Trail in Park Forest, Illinois. The entry fee is $10. A re-entry fee will be $5. Ages 12 and up. Prizes for the top performers, and there will be a cash prize for the top winner of $1,000. So if you
shoot $1,000,
$1,000 cash prize to the winner. Vendors opportunity is also available. You can reach out to me if you are interested, as well as chicagolandathletics@gmail.com, chicagolandathletics@gmail.com. So we're looking for those of you who want to participate, who want to help this organization, great organization that's really giving back to the community and our young men. And we know that our young men need something to do to keep themselves occupied and off the streets. Okay, we are going to take a break, and we're going to bring back the doctor. So, yes, the doctor. So he can talk to us about diabetes. So thank you for tuning in to Divas Den on IntellectualRadio.com. I am the boss lady.
And I am the diva.
And we'll be back with Dr. Tony Hamilton. Welcome back to Divas Den on IntellectualRadio.com. I am your host, the Boss Lady.
And I am the co-host, the Diva.
And we have our guest, Dr. Tony Hamilton, Medical Director of Advocate Medical Group and author of Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes. How are you, Doctor?
I am doing wonderful. I'm so happy you guys invited me. And, it's funny. I didn't really meet you. My wife met you.
Yes.
That's so funny. So she's part of the team, I guess, trying to help get the message out.
She is more than part of the team. So let me tell you, Dr. Hamilton's wife and I go to the same hairstylist. So one day, as always, I'm walking into the salon and I'm excited, and our hairstylist, Mark Anthony, is, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, this is going on. I'm doing this and everything is so great. And then Dr. Hamilton's wife, hey, I need your card. My husband wrote this book, and he loves to talk, and he can share this information. And what is so great, I tell you, every man needs a cheerleader. And I tell you,
and a
that's
what I was just thinking. I'm like, she is truly a team player.
Yes. So I am glad that we got connected.
That's right.
Because, I did some research and I was reading some of your things and your videos and all this that you have going on. And the fact that even this morning when I posted and asked how many people have diabetes, and I already knew that many of my friends had it, or co-workers that I have worked with had it, but the number of people and friends that inboxed me this morning or shared on Facebook, I was like, oh my. So this was a great topic to talk about, and we're going to get started because we have so much to cover. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the questions we have for you.
Absolutely. I am actually a resident. I live in Oak Park, but I grew up on Chicago's West Side. West Side, nothing wrong with the West Side. So I grew up on the West Side. I ended up going to Lane Tech High School for high school. Then I went to Xavier in New Orleans. So shout outs to historically Black schools.
Yes.
Want to do a shout out to those schools. Came back to Chicago, did my family practice residency at my medical school at the Chicago Medical School. Then I went to West Suburban, did family practice training. Initially was a family doctor, did a lot of obstetrics, pediatrics, for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Then for the last 10 years, I've been with Advocate Healthcare working as a family doctor, older population, not the kids, not the babies anymore, but primarily dealing with chronic illness. And that's when diabetes became a big issue. And just like you suggest, I didn't realize how many people had it. And some days, half the patients I see are either diabetic or borderline. So in the communities of color, it's almost half the people either have it or borderline. So it's really an epidemic, and we really have to address it, because if we don't, then the future generation is going to be sicker than the previous generation.
Understandable.
So is this, you wouldn't consider this as a genetic disease?
Diabetes, in theory, is a genetic disease. However, your genes have to be activated. So if I'm in an environment that's going to make it more likely that cancer, for example, is going to be activated, in other words, I smoke, coal mine, then I'll activate the cancer gene. If I'm in an environment where that's not happening, it's less likely to occur. For diabetes, the thing that activates it, in my opinion, is diet. Stress. But diet is the number one reason. So my goal and my mission is to educate people that should be your number one focus.
Okay, and so that's why you wrote the book, Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes.
I wanted to provide a way for, she was advocating for me, but I actually wrote the book initially because of her. She got adult onset type 1, and adult onset, we used to call it juvenile, as you mentioned earlier, because it was a kid thing, but really you can get it as an adult. And so that kind of shocked us. And when you are a physician taking care of people, not as engaged until it comes home, right? So when it came home, I was like, oh my God. So I wanted, in her honor, to write something to help her, but I also wanted to be a role model for my kids.
Yeah.
I wanted them to, I always talked about doing this, and I wanted to kind of be true to that. So I wanted to be a role model for them and help them understand you can do anything you want. just focus and make it happen. But I knew there were a lot of people who needed this information. And once I understood we were not treating the disease properly, I knew that there was a better way. And that's when I did the research and I was able to come up with this information in this book.
Okay, great, great. Why are there so many people with diabetes that was not, when it was not the case 30 to 40 years ago?
Absolutely. I won't ask you guys age because you guys are divas. But let's assume that we're in a similar age range. So I think when I grew up on that west side, I went to Robert Emmett Elementary School on, I think, Madison and Central.
Yes.
And when I was in elementary school, it was rare to find a person who's overweight. It was like that rare person. Now it's rare to find a person who's not overweight, right? So something changed. And what happened were a couple of things. One is fat became the enemy. So anybody listening, just write down Ansel Keys, Ancelkeys. Look that name up. He was a scientist, and he was competing with another scientist. They were trying to figure out, is it sugar? Is it fat? He was so well respected that people decided to go with his advice, and ultimately this low-fat thing kicked in.
Got it.
That was in the 60s and 70s, and as soon as that kicked in, thicker. That was sort of the low-fat thing does not work. As an example, yogurt, low-fat yogurt means they have to add sugar to make it tasty. And so adding sugar ended up making it tasty, but it also made us sick. That's the first thing. The second thing that happened was fructose became part of our diet. And it's basically just taking corn. It was discovered in Japan in 1966. You can take corn, turn into sugar in the form of fructose. And it was so cheap, coupled by the fact that Nixon subsidized corn and soy. So now corn's cheap. We're going to use this cheaper sugar instead of regular sugar. And so now we have an influx of fructose in everything. And because it's so addictive, manufacturers loved it because not only are you going to use it, but it's cheap and it's going to make you want more. So now you have low-fat diet, which is not the right thing to do. In fact, high-fat makes more sense, and I will explain that in a little bit, and eating more fructose. The rest are socioeconomic factors, lobbyists and people supporting industries they shouldn't be supporting, not based on science, but based on finance.
Why do so many people struggle to manage their diabetes?
Wow. It's very scary, right? You mentioned some complications. It's very scary. So when we think about, even when you talk about your mom, you start thinking about this and you're like, man, I'm afraid of it. So the first thing is I'm afraid to even face it and deal with it because I'm thinking about my mother, I'm thinking about my other family members. But a lot of it is because the people who we trust to provide care were never educated on how to properly deal with this illness. So basically the doctors and the advanced practice clinicians who are nurses and physicians assistants who see people on diet, they're trained on medicine. But why would that exist? Because we do what we call evidence-based medicine. So all the research, let me just say, most of the research in the country are sponsored by pharmaceuticals. They have a lot of resources, which is not a bad thing. We want them to do research. If you didn't have insulin, people would not be here. So we want medicine. The problem is they have an opportunity to take 10 studies, look at the ones that favor their drug, discard the ones that don't. And so evidence-based medicine is kind of skewed towards medicine. Who's going to spend the money to do the research on diet? Because there's no money being made. Therefore, most of the treatments are towards medicine, but medicine doesn't really get to the root cause of diabetes. It's almost like treating a symptom. Your high sugar is a symptom. So if we focus on symptoms and that underlying cause, which is insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, for reverse, you'll just be chronically dependent on medicine and you'll never get better. That's why people on insulin and things like that, they feel like they're always gaining weight, they're always hungry, and they never feel like they're getting better. A dietary approach could actually reverse the disease because eating the right food will reverse insulin resistance so that the insulin will start working better. Just like alcohol, if I drink a lot of alcohol, what's going to happen is I get tolerant. So I need 3 glasses to get the same feeling. You're kind of smiling, so I'm not going to ask why. Having said that, back on track.
Just
I'm not going to you on that one. The bottom line is, as you get more tolerant of insulin because you're eating the wrong foods, then you're going to need more insulin. And insulin's inflammatory. It's the fat storage hormone. So the more insulin you put in your body, the more you're going to get sicker, ironically. So the goal is we need insulin, but we don't want to overuse it. And the only way you're going to not need it is by eating the right key.
Okay, so let's say I have type 2. When is it too late to try to reverse it?
Wow. It's really important to understand that inflammation is why diabetes is so dangerous. It's an inflammatory condition. So if I get inflammation in my eyes, it's going to increase my risk for something called diabetic retinopathy, blindness. If I get inflammation in my legs, it's going to decrease my circulation. That's going to cause me have an increased risk of getting gangrene and amputations. The nerves are going to be inflamed. Neuropathy, where you get that tingling sensation, heart disease, it's all inflammation. So the key to diabetes is to realize that no matter when you get it, when you decide to intervene, once you reverse that inflammation, you're going to benefit. Even if you've lost your vision, maybe you won't get heart disease. Maybe you won't get an amputation. Maybe like what we call, diabetic gastropathy. And people don't know about this type of stuff, where your stomach doesn't digest because the nerves are not working. You can't digest your food. So the goal, and what I wrote about, is to give us a taste of what can happen, but more importantly, and it's not that hard. It's really easy once you kind of get a feel for what the problem is. Again, stop treating the symptoms and start treating the insulin resistance. That's the key.
Well, one thing for sure is, and having the right doctor. The reason I say this is because I had an experience where I had chosen a new doctor, and I go to her office. And one of the things that she said to me was, "You may have diabetes." No testing. Wow. No testing was done whatsoever. And then she had some weight management products. But if you look at her, she wobbled down to my room. Let's be honest.
It's a tough sell.
So why did she, when she looked, what did she say what she saw that
a dark mark? First of all, doctor, tell me if I'm wrong. If you are going to tell a patient that they have some type of health issue, would you share that or your thoughts or your opinion without doing any testing?
Yeah. Now, it is no doubt that there are certain, like if you have a darkened patch of skin on your neck or on your leg, that is a sign.
Okay.
But it doesn't really matter. How you message, it's just like a relationship. How I talk to my wife matters. It's not the information, it's how I say it. So we as healthcare professionals, and they're doing a better job, have not been trained to talk to people a certain way. That's because we didn't value how important that was. If I talk to a senior and I say, Miss Jones, and I touch her, she feels a connection because I put my hand on her. It's how I say it. I'm not trying to blame people. I'm not trying to be demeaning. So I think what's happened is the training wasn't proper. And again, if my focus is on selling a book, if I'm here just to sell a book, then I'm not adding value. The money that you make on a book is irrelevant to a doctor, with all due respect to, the book. What I'm saying is you have to be driven by purpose. So if my purpose is to look at this community that I love and see sickness and want to do something about it. So if the focus of the doctor is just selling a product and she can't role model, again, if I go to a nutrition person or an athletic trainer, I would expect that they would be in pretty good shape, that they'd have a pretty good diet, and it's an easier sell. So I think that is partly because of the training, but I agree with you. You would have received that message a little differently. Yes. But again, always remember, even when doctors go to conferences, a lot of times they're sponsored by industry. If I speak on behalf of the Diabetes Association, who I love, the American Heart Association does a lot of education, but they're all sponsored. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be sponsored by industry, but it's a tough sell when you're sponsored by Coca-Cola if they, it's just a tough sell when you're trying to talk about diabetes, but yet. So I think the goal is my job is not just about you guys as great, wonderful hosts who are doing great work in the community. It's not just about my wife and my family and my patients. It's about the bigger picture. Yeah. And I need to talk to doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers to help them understand we may have missed the mark. It's not too late to be okay with saying we may have missed the mark. Let's shift the direction and let's start giving people the right information. We will work with pharmaceuticals, not against them. It's not about, we see what happens in politics when we go against each other.
Right.
We got to work together to find honest answers to simple questions. And that's what this is about. So again, if I were you, if you were still with that doctor, I would go to that. Well, let's talk about the next doctor. Yes. When you're dealing with your clinician, them, doc, I really don't want to be on medicines. I'll take it for a while, but can you, this is what I'm doing and I'm learning how to eat better. Can you work with me to do that? And then as you have success, you may convince that doctor to take that approach. So we're all kind of accountable to making this move in the right direction.
So her presentation was off with you. I think, but I'm sitting here listening to him talking. Yeah. I'm thinking if she would have came to you and said, you know what, Madeline, I see a dark spot. That's a little bit of a concern for me. Usually that means that, you may be on the verge of being diabetic. Let's do some testing.
That's right.
You would have received it a little bit better.
Yes, she said, let's do some testing. But she just said, looks like you have diabetes.
I think I could be a doctor.
No, I don't think so. Stick to what you know. Another question for you. What types of success stories have you seen in your clinical practice?
Yeah, I'm going to say my age because guys can do that. I'm 49. I've been practicing. Go ahead, you gonna say it? All right, sister. I ain't mad at you. So this is the key. I've been practicing 20 years now, and about a year and a half ago when I took this journey to do research, I wanted to figure out what the key was, right? So I immediately, as I learned, started changing my practice. Now, prior to this book and this research, I was just like any other doctor. I focused on control the sugars, control the blood pressure with medicine. If I do a good job with that, I'm being a great doctor. That's how I'm being judged in the medical community. But when I did the research and realized that diet was the key, I said, well, let me just change my practice, right? So this is an amazing discovery. So what happened was in the last year, I've taken, in fact, let me just give you an example. About a month ago, I just started monitoring my patients. And in 1 week, I took 2 people off of insulin who had been on it, one for 5 and one for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
One person cried in the office. The same week, I took 6 people off of their pills for diabetes. And in the same week, I took 4 people off their blood pressure medicine. All they did differently was change their diet. In the last 18 years that preceded that, I can't think of having that success in 18 years. I did it in 1 week.
Wow. So
when I shifted to nutrition, everything changed.
I have high blood pressure. I need to come and see you.
What?
I'm serious.
Well, the principles of diet are not just about diabetes, hypertension. Yes. It's about weight management. It's about, believe it or not, cholesterol.
Yeah.
All of that. And people don't understand. They say, the principles, and we'll talk about eating more fat and less carbs. How is eating more fat going to help your cholesterol? It doesn't even make sense. So we'll touch on that. But if you eat the right diet, and there's no perfect diet, then you'll reverse a lot of that disease. I promise.
Okay.
It's hard to understand because once you get on blood pressure medicines, you think I'm on it for life.
No, my goal is to
get off. You just need to find that path. So that's all.
Need to find the right one. I done tried many and it hasn't been working.
It's gonna happen. Don't worry. We're gonna
I've been praying. You are the answer to my prayer.
Come on, that's a lot. That's saying a lot.
I'm so serious. I'm concerned about my high blood pressure. You are too.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Even this morning, it was there with it. But I am trying to focus on weight loss because that's what my doctor consistently insists. And I know it has to do with weight loss.
Right. And the key is going to be, how do you get there?
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what we need to understand, right? But that's,
when you're
it won't
used
be
to eating greens, beans, sweet potato pie, cornbread, ham hocks, neck bones.
But see, half the stuff you mentioned are okay.
So the point to touch on that,
and we'll talk.
The difference between the low carb dietary approach and the sugar fam. That's right. You know, people are confused and they don't know what to trust, what diet to follow.
That's right. Well, let's talk about it. And what you're referring to is those documentaries. There's so many. I was a vegetarian for 8 years, so there's nothing wrong with that. That new documentary, What the Health, I think we know what they were trying to say when they said What the Health. It's very catchy. And then there's another one called That Sugar Film. They're going in completely different directions. So you have one, and I advise everybody. I think I saw Netflix, and I saw That Sugar Film. You can just watch that on YouTube. It's been out longer. That sugar film is kind of where I'm at, which is the sugar is killing us, and it's in everything. 80% of the products on the shelf has added sugar, mostly in the form of fructose. 80%. So even if you get ketchup, it's got added fructose. If you get barbecue sauce, if you eat those ribs without the barbecue sauce, you're probably okay. It's the barbecue sauce. Some brands have 18 carbs, which all turn into sugar, spoons, and you know how much barbecue sauce we put on our meat.
Yes.
So, and most people, if you want to achieve your goal, need to be less than 50 carbs a day. So imagine just the barbecue sauce alone. Don't start talking about the macaroni and the spaghetti and that other stuff. You might as well forget it. So one film is saying sugar is the enemy. The next film is saying you have to be a vegetarian. Vegetarian because I cared a little bit about the earth. Global warming, that's all. Literally, there's no doubt that that's more related to dairy and the cows and what comes out of the cows and the pigs. All of that stuff, you know, puts gases in the air. That's all real. But for those years, those 8 years I was a vegetarian, I tried over and over again to get my patients to go on a vegetarian. I'm going to write this book. It was going to be a fix your diet from a vegetarian perspective, but I've been around my people all my life, and when you start talking about taking some of that food you mentioned away, that's a tough sell.
Yes, it is.
Right. So I do believe that it's almost like comparing Spike Lee to Tyler Perry. Do we really need to be against each other? Right. If you think about it, they have a different message.
Exactly.
Medea is okay, and what Spike Lee is saying is okay. It's a different message.
Right.
So I'm saying for people on either side of that aisle, yes, if you can go vegetarian and not make it starchy vegetarian, because if it's starchy, you're still going to have a problem, then that's a phenomenal way to eat. And it may be the healthiest way to eat, to be a vegetarian, low starchy diet, because when it comes to cancer and stuff, that's a no-brainer. However, if you're saying I got to eat a little meat sometimes,
gotta have my meat sometimes.
Gotta have it. Gotta have it, especially chicken, right? That's right. I hate to bring up chicken, but I'm gonna go there.
Chicken, fried, baked, have a grill, rotisserie.
What I'm saying is, when you do research, in fact, people look up the A to Z study done at Stanford, and when they did that study, they had it was A for Atkins, then you had traditional diet, O for Ornish, Dean Ornish is a vegetarian guy, and then zone diet vegetarian. Can you believe that Atkins diet beat those diets? Better cholesterol, better diabetes. It's a study done at Stanford. So my whole point is, don't demonize low carb, high fat, because it works, and don't demonize the vegetarian diet. You do what's best for you. But I'm saying, based on my experience, obesity and weight, and I follow the American College of Obesity Medicine. I think that they're the most unbiased, just tell it like it is. And what I follow and learn from is what they say in their research. And the research they're saying is that this probably for insulin-resistant people, which is like 2 out of 3 Americans, this is the best diet for them. But if you like the vegetarian approach, that's fine. It's okay to go in that direction.
Understand.
So you have 2 videos on YouTube about fasting. How can fasting help those with diabetes?
Well, it's interesting. The first thing about fasting I love is that, and believe it or not, I haven't had breakfast yet. Breakfast is breaking, how I like to think of it. So we've been taught you have to have 3 meals a day. That was mostly industry and culture. It was never science. When you take mice and you fast them, they live 30 to 80% longer. Fasting sounds really difficult. I'm just talking about skipping breakfast, for example, which seems difficult if you're always eating breakfast.
Yes, because that's what we've been taught for years.
You've been taught for years.
Breakfast is gonna make you smart. You're gonna do better in school.
If you want to be a better student, when the last time you ate lunch and didn't have like a post-lunch going? If I get up and don't have breakfast and drink a lot of fluids without sugar in it, I'm thinking clear. And guess what your body's going to do? It's going to use fat, which turns it's going to use that as your energy. And your brain actually likes that energy more than that sugar, which is ironic. So my whole point is, it's not based on science. Science says that skipping a meal. So I do a 16-8 fast. So I basically have dinner at 7 or 8. I don't have another meal until lunchtime. And so for 16 hours, I haven't had anything to eat. I'm going to think clear. My cells are going to repair themselves because they're not busy digesting food. They're going to happen. This is the time to heal. You can't heal if you're constantly eating. So again, I have a whole chapter that talks about fasting. Very simple. You do what works for you. As a busy doctor, I'm so busy, I don't even think about food. But I needed to have confidence that that was the right thing to do.
Right.
And what I'm saying to anybody listening, it's okay to do that. Instead of worrying about I got to take medicines, how about if I don't eat, I don't need as much medicine? How about focus on getting off the medicine instead of feeling like I'm obligated to take it? So it's a very safe way to go. But when you're doing fasting, you want to do that in consultation with your doctor so that your medicines can be reduced. The worst thing you can do is be on medicines for diabetes that raise insulin and not eat. Then your sugar is going to plummet. The key is to, maybe I don't need that pill that morning because I didn't have breakfast. That's a better approach because we tend to treat the medicine. We take in food because we're on medicine. How about if we don't eat the right food or not eat that morning and then not need the medicine? That's how you get off of medicine. But you don't have to fast to achieve the goals I'm talking about. This is just for people who want to get there faster. This is other than bariatric surgery, fasting is the fastest way to get diabetes out of your life. But you don't have to fast.
Well, doctor, I wish we had more time, but there's a couple of things I want to touch on quickly is in regards to your book, Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes. Where can they get it? How can they contact you if they have any questions or concerns about anything as well?
Absolutely. So if you go to drtonyhampton.com, and that's just DrTonyHampton, there's a link for the book. You can simply just type in the title of the book, Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes, on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, etc. On the website, there's some images, and if you click on those images, there are some links to some quick tips. I know everybody can't spend $12 or $9 for an ebook. So if you click on those tips, it'll give you some really quick ways to start the journey. The main message is, if you get your carbohydrates, don't even look at sugar. Get the carbs less than about 50 a day, and then the diseases start to reverse. That's the magic number for most people, 50 carbs or less, which sounds impossible when so does 38 carbs. But if you do that, you'll start the journey, and then work with your doctor to start reducing your medicines. Again, I'm good with medicine, but no side effects, no co-pays is a better way to live.
Yes, definitely.
And with no co-pays.
Right.
And when we're fasting, you don't even have to spend money on food. So.
Right.
Well, one thing for sure, thank you for tuning in to Divas Den on IntellectualRadio.com. We really appreciate our guest, Dr. Tony Hamilton, Medical Director, Advocate of Medical Group, and author of Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes. I advise you to go and look at his YouTube, get his book, reach out to him if you have any questions, concerns. It is important for us to take care of our health so we can live longer, live, laugh, and enjoy life to the fullest. I am your host, the Boss Lady.
And I am the Diva.
And we want to say, feed your brain and get your mind right. Thank you, doctor.
That was awesome.